Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to a decade where everything was bigger. Hair, shoulder pads, and yes, even family dysfunction. Welcome to the 1980s, a land of microwave dinners, beige station wagons, and the ever-present fear that someone somewhere might tape over your MacGyver episode. So before you settle in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this blend of soothing history and gentle psychological excavation. And if you're feeling bold, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always 2 a.m. somewhere, and nothing says a healthy sleep routine like listening to a stranger gently roast the American nuclear family. Now, dim the lights. Switch on a fan for that comforting background hum. Maybe grab a blanket crocheted by an aunt who never quite liked you. Get comfortable. You'll need it because tonight we're stepping into a world where the wallpaper is made of lead paint. Dad's got a mustache thicker than your entire personality, and the only therapy available is quietly mowing the lawn in crisp white sneakers. But let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it was really like to eat 6 consecutive casseroles made of condensed soup? Why did every living room have a decorative glass bowl no one could touch? Did fathers really communicate solely through grunts, or was that just my uncle? Was there ever a child who survived the backseat of a wood-paneled station wagon without inhaling secondhand smoke and existential dread? How much emotional repression can fit inside a single pair of pleated car keys? And most importantly, if the house was so clean, why did it smell so much like microwaved fish sticks? Congratulations. You've just woken up in a suburban American home in 1984. The Reagan administration is on TV, your older sibling just erased your high score on Pac-Man, and your mother is staring at you over a pyramid of Tupperware with the cold intensity of someone who survived the Great Depression. Good luck. Your eyelids flutter open to the sound of a clock radio playing Eye of the Tiger. The air smells faintly of burnt toast and aerosol hairspray. Breakfast is a gamble. Will you get Lucky Charms, or did Mom fill the box with off-brand flakes again? Every spoonful is a reminder that nutrition in the 80s was a suggestion, not a rule. You lie there for a moment, staring at the textured ceiling above you, listening to the faint whir of a neighbor's lawnmower already at work before sunrise. The house cacks to life around you, pipes rattling, someone's hairdryer roaring, and the gentle but persistent background hiss of a radiating baseboard heater. You can hear your mother in the kitchen, already engaged in her daily battle with the world's angriest toaster. You shuffle out of bed, feet finding the cold patchwork of shag carpet, and make your way down the hallway, dodging scattered socks, a Rubik's Cube, and the faint existential dread that always lingers in the wallpaper. In the bathroom, the scent of Aquanet is so thick you're not sure if you're supposed to brush your teeth or just shellac them and call it a day. Downstairs, the kitchen is a shrine to questionable 80 seconds decor and industrial-strength optimism. There's a fruit bowl, filled exclusively with bananas in various stages of crisis. A ceramic canister sets the counter, each labeled with a word like flour or coffee, but only ever containing sugar packets and a tape measure. A wood-paneled microwave, the size of a dorm fridge, hums ominously from its corner, always ready to transform last night's pizza into a science experiment. You approach the breakfast table and are greeted by the family's unofficial morning ritual, the great cereal debate. The options are as follows: a box of Lucky Charms with one lonely marshmallow rolling around the bottom, Raisin Bran that expired during the Carter administration, and something called Toasty Oat Circle, the store brand whose mascot looks vaguely threatening. You pour yourself a bowl, the cereal clinking like gravel, and add a splash of milk that may or may not be flirting with its own expiration date. Every bite is a textural adventure, a mix of sweet, stale, and possibly medicinal. There's a 50% chance you'll bite into a raisin that is either a fossil or just a cleverly disguised lint ball from the dryer. You glance up at the breakfast table's other denizens. Dad, hidden behind the Morning Gazette, and a mug of coffee so strong it's legally considered a controlled substance. Your sibling already wearing a windbreaker indoors, methodically picking marshmallows out of their bowl with the precision of a safe cracker. Mom, orchestrating the chaos, multitasks between pouring orange juice from concentrate and yelling up the stairs about missing shoes. The television in the corner chatters on about interest rates, acid rain, and something called the space shuttle. You're supposed to be eating a balanced meal, but the closest thing to UET is the artificial flavor in your bowl and a cherry-shaped Flintstones vitamin you find next to your fork. There is, of course, the ongoing Tupperware wars. At least one plastic container is always missing its lid, and no one can find the right bottom for the top you do have. Your attempts to close your lunchbox with a warped container are met with the resigned sighs of generations before you. Outside, the neighborhood comes alive in fits and starts. Garage doors groaning, open, kids waiting in clouds of exhaust for the school bus, and the distant sound of a neighbor cursing at their car's carburetor. Every morning in Suburbia is a minor miracle of scheduling, negotiation, and surviving on pure willpower and processed grains. You finish your cereal, scrape the bowl, and head out the door, already late, shoes untied and hair only half brushed. Another morning in the 1980s, fueled by the sacred ritual of the cereal lottery, a game you'll never win, but one you'll always remember. And with that, you step into the day, part sugar rush, part nostalgia, part triumph over adversity, one bite at a time. You pad across the shag carpet into a bathroom that looks like a lime exploded. There's a carpeted toilet lid, and the only thing stronger than the cleaning chemicals is your fear of stepping on a rogue Lego. You wonder how anyone survived the mold ecosystem, thriving behind the wallpaper. The door closes with a hollow thud, echoing in a chamber of memories scented with a blend of pine sol, mildew, and something suspiciously floral. The walls are clad in wallpaper that defies geometry, swirls of orange and olive, now peeling in loose curling sheets like sunburned skin. Each pat, shove, discoloration marks a battle lost to the endless suburban humidity. A silent testimony to the futility of steam-resistant glue. You flick on the light. It's a single bare bulb surrounded by a globe fixture that casts the kind of greenish pallor usually reserved for hospital waiting rooms and crime scenes. The mirror, trimmed in fake brass and flecked with mystery spots, reflect a version of you that, just slightly off, blurry at the edges, possibly haunted by the ghost of haircuts past. The bath mat is plush, if by plush you mean permanently damp, and stuck to the floor in places by a mixture of age and Elmer's glue residue. Beside the avocado tub, a plastic caddy holds an arsenal of hygiene products: bubble bath, a bar of Zest soap worn thin as a communion wafer, and a single bottle of Johnson's baby shampoo that's been here since you had bangs. The toilet itself is a museum piece upholstered in a fuzzy lid cover that threatens to detach and skitter across the floor if you close it too fast. You stare at it, contemplating the number of germs that have set up a timeshare underneath that cozy green surface. You've never actually seen anyone clean the lid. Just spray it with something labeled lemon fresh and hope for the best. You attempt to brush your teeth, fighting with a plastic cup of tap water that tastes faintly of chlorine and nostalgia. Somewhere under the sink lurks an entire civilization of half-used toothpaste tubes, hotel shampoo bottles, and Q-tips that have melted into the shape of abstract art. Every few weeks your mom launches a cleaning campaign, emerging victorious only after sacrificing several dish towels and her last nerve. The shower is an ordeal in itself. The curtain, printed with a school of fish and colors unknown to nature, clings to you with a cold, clammy insistence, as if afraid to be left alone. The showerhead, caked with decades of minerals, offers you two options: scalding or glacial. The faucet's hot and cold handles are labeled, but in reality, it's just a roulette wheel of temperature and regret. Personal grooming in the 80s bathroom is less about style and more about survival. You Try to find a towel that isn't already damp, discovering instead a pile of mismatched cloth in colors that have faded from sunset peach to emotional beige. The medicine cabinet holds a roll. Call of family secrets, stale Band-Aids, expired Vicks Vapo rub, and a bottle of aspirin older than you. You do your best to wash up, dodging soap bars that shoot out of your hands like greasy missiles and hair from a decade's worth of haircuts swirling ominously down the drain. The exhaust fan rattles overhead, valiantly trying and failing to prevent the slow, inevitable march of mildew. Eventually, you're ready to leave. Slightly more awake, but possibly less clean than when you entered. You pause, wondering if the mysterious green stain in the corner is growing, but decide it's best not to investigate. This is not a place for answers, only for acceptance. You tiptoe back into the hallway, your feet trailing a faint scent of bleach and self-doubt. The avocado green trauma following you like a distant memory. Congratulations, you've survived another encounter with the suburban bathroom, where the decor is eternal, the mold is multi-generational, and the only certainty is that you'll be back tomorrow. And as you shut the door, behind you, you take a deep breath, careful not to inhale too deeply. Thankful that at least you didn't step on the Lego this time. Time to select your outfit from a closet containing exactly 2 types of clothing. Stiff denim and something that could catch fire if you look at it funny. You settle on a turtleneck that's half static electricity, half aspiration. The closet itself is a study in fashion trauma, a row of plastic hangers, creaking under the weight of colors that don't occur in nature. You're confronted with a forest of pastels, mustards, and at least 3 different items in dusty rose. A color invented specifically to clash with everything else you own. There's a pair of acid-wash jeans so rigid they can stand up by themselves. An entire wall of ill-advised vests and a sweater vest that haunts you like an unfinished tax return. You run your hand across the racks, feeling the unyielding crispness of corduroy, the plasticky smoothness of imitation leather, and a section devoted to athletic wear that consists entirely of tube socks and a windbreaker that could double as a parachute. Somewhere lurking in the back is the itchy wool sweater your grandmother knitted, shaped vaguely like a human torso, colored like static on a broken TV, and designed to render you functionally immobile. You pick up a shirt that claims to be breathable, but immediately sticks to your skin in a way that defies the laws of physics and personal comfort. The polyester blend crackles with static, making your hair stand on end and your self-esteem gently wilt. Every time you slip it over your head, there's a 50/50th chance you'll generate enough static to reprogram the family TV. Next comes the pants, a biner. Wry choice between jeans so tight you need to lie down to zip them, or dress slacks that promise easy care but somehow require both ironing and emotional support. You recall the last time you wore corduroy? The way it broadcasted your every move with a loud swish-swish that made stealth impossible, especially on the school bus. Socks are a wild card. You might get lucky and find a matching pair, or you might have to settle for 2 different shades of brown and hope the dim lighting in class saves you from ridicule. You consider the tube socks with the colored stripes still damp from yesterday's attempt at athletic glory in gym class, their elastic band already plotting your eventual downfall. You reach for your sneakers, their canvas faded and toe caps slightly melted from an encounter with the family's old space heater. If it's a special day, there's always the threat of being forced into dress shoes, plastic loafers that squeak with every step and seem to harvest every puddle within a 10 miles radius. You slip into your chosen shoes and stand back to admire your work. You look, for lack of a better word, prepared for a fire drill, an accidental electroshock, or an impromptu dance-off in the cafeteria. You glance at the mirror, half expecting to see a cast member from Family Ties. The turtleneck, now clinging to you like a desperate secret, is equal parts style statement and electrical hazard. Your hair, already suffering from a close encounter with polyester, puffs up in rebellion. You briefly consider a hat, but the only options are a pom-pom beanie or a visor that screams lost at the mini golf course. Downstairs, your mother offers unsolicited feedback. You look nice. In 80s parents speak, this is both a compliment and a challenge. She tries to tame your hair with a spritz of hairspray, leaving a chemical cloud that lingers for hours and will later fuse with the classroom's chalk dust to form a new mineral. You step out into the world, your outfit rustling and crackling with every move, already bracing for the day's adventures, and the certainty that whatever happens, at least you won't freeze or catch a cold, only possibly catch fire. So, you take a deep breath, square your polyester-clad shoulders, and step into another day of the 1980s. You are, for better or worse, dressed for survival. Downstairs, the kitchen hums with the stress of unspoken grievances. Mom is orchestrating the morning chaos with a spatula and the patience of a Cold War diplomat. The microwave is the size of a small car, and every meal tastes vaguely of plastic. You hover in the doorway, careful not to block the fridge, a cardinal sin punishable by a passive, aggressive sigh, and a reminder that some of us are trying to get things done. The refrigerator is wallpapered in school calendars, expired coupons, and a cryptic flowchart outlining who is responsible for cleaning the litter box. On top, an old coffee can stores pennies, rubber bands, and batteries of questionable vintage, all watched over by a lonely ceramic owl. The linoleum floor, a visual riot of geometric patterns and mysterious stains, has lost its original color under a thick glaze of lemon-scented mop solution and spilled tang. The air is heavy with the aromas of instant coffee, burnt toast, and whatever experimental casserole happened last night. Its remains quietly congealing on a plate in the sink, next to a spoon that no one will claim. Breakfast in this kitchen is a multi-front operation. You're expected to assemble your own meal from the contents of a bread box that seems to produce only heels, a tub of margarine, and a rotating cast of jams, all labeled with the year in case of emergency. There's always one forgotten banana with a bruised exterior and a texture somewhere between edible and science project. The cereal sits on the counter, in an open box, the plastic liner crumpled and half empty, as though a raccoon has already given it a once-over. In the center of it all, Mom presides with a steely gaze, flipping pancakes that resemble abstract maps of Europe and scrambling eggs with the distracted ferocity of someone who's already had her patience tested by the sound of bickering over the TV remote. She wears an apron decorated with cartoon vegetables, though the effect is less whimsical. Chef, and more do not cross this line. You know better than to critique the orange juice, which has been reconstituted from concentrate and possesses the faint tang of penny tray coins. Communication is swift and indirect. Requests are relayed via sighs, eyebrow raises, and the occasional tapping of a spoon against a plate. Your sibling attempts to sneak a Pop-Tart, only to be intercepted by the subtle clatter of the toaster lever and a sideways glance that means, "Try it and you'll see what happens." Dad makes a brief cameo, searching for his travel mug and muttering darkly about how someone moved my thermos, which is code for "I don't want to be the first to apologize." The Tupperware drawer is the final frontier, a chaotic jungle of warped plastic, unpaired lids and containers with mysterious origins. No matter what you pack for lunch, it will inevitably leak or explode, perfuming your backpack with odor tuna for the rest of the semester. The morning soundtrack features the clink of silverware, the drone of the local news, and the low-level hum of simmering resentment. Someone forgot to soak the oatmeal pot, and now it is fused with the stove in an act of passive defiance. Above the table, a dusty light fixture wobbles slightly, as if exhausted by years of illuminating tense family discussions about overdue library books and questionable report card grades. You retreat to the kitchen table, an ancient slab of faux wood scored with knife marks and gouged by generations of homework meltdowns, just in time for the grand distribution of vitamins. A clattering bottle is set before you, and you're forced to swallow a cherry-flavored tablet the size of a Monopoly die. Your sibling is excused after making a show of gagging you. Soldier on, rewarded with a barely thawed ego. Mom finally sits, mug in hand, her gaze distant. You can tell she's calculating laundry, dentist appointments, the logistics of surviving another week without a mutiny. The kitchen is her domain, her bunker, her diplomatic headquarters. Every spoonful of cereal, every muffled sigh, every carefully averted argument is another act in the daily theater of truce and tension. You gather your things, ducking the final wave of instructions. Don't forget your lunch. Tell your brother to put on shoes, and the ever-present be nice to each other. You nod, escaping just as the microwave beeps, summoning all of you for one last showdown. Congratulations, you've survived the kitchen, emerging on lightly singed, slightly sticky, and a little more emotionally prepared for whatever the 80s throws at you next. You watch in horror as your lunch is assembled. Bologna, processed cheese, and an apple that could survive nuclear winter. Everything is wrapped in cling film with the tightness of a space shuttle. The lunchroom is a battleground of status, pudding cups, and bruised fruit. This daily ritual begins at the kitchen counter under the resigned gaze of your mother, who is convinced she's fueling your education with nothing but nitrates and quiet desperation. The loaf of Wonder Bread is pillowy white with the texture of packing peanuts and the nutritional value to match. Each slice sticks to the roof of your mouth with the clingy affection of a barnacle. You don't remember the last time you saw bread with a visible grain or a color darker than dental enamel. The bologna is a pale, perfectly round disc that looks suspiciously like it was made by the same company that manufactures school gym mats. It has a tangy chemical perfume sliced to a thickness that says, "We value quantity over quality." It's paired with a slab of processed cheese, bright orange, and individually wrapped in its own piece of edible plastic. By the time the sandwich is complete, it radiates an aura of defeat that no amount of mayonnaise can mask. The apple, always an apple, never a pear or a plum, has skin like ballistic nylon, and a waxy sheen that could deflect a laser. You suspect it's the same apple you brought home last week, endlessly recycled until one of you gives up. A handful of chips, a single stick of celery as legal requirement, and if you're lucky, a pudding cup with a peel-back lid round out the meal. The pudding is always chocolate and always slightly warm by lunchtime, as if it's been gently incubating in your backpack. Everything is meticulously entombed in cling film, twisted and tucked at the corners, as if it might someday re-enter Earth's atmosphere. Your lunch bag, a faded relic emblazed with your favorite cartoon character, carries the subtle perfume of years' worth of peanut butter and mystery odor. The zipper sticks. There are suspicious crumbs in every pocket, and you half expect to find a note from your past self begging for better snacks. Once you reach school, lunch becomes an exercise in social survival. The cafeteria is a windowless bunker that echoes with the shriek of plastic trays and the dull thud of unopened milk cartons. You slide into your usual seat, already eyeing the competition. Kids with thermoses of last night's lasagna, the elite. Those who buy hot lunch, the wild cards. And the kid who somehow has sushi, who is regarded with a mix of awe and suspicion. Lunch is a delicate dance of trading, bartering, and subterfuge. Someone offers you a bag of Fritos in exchange for your pudding. You hesitate. Chocolate pudding is the only true currency here, but the allure of corn chips is strong. Around you, deals are brokered with the gravitas of a nuclear summit. Lunchables are the rarest commodity. They're tiny processed meats and crackers coveted like black market caviar. You unwrap your sandwich and inspect the layers. The bread is already soggy at the edges. The cheese is fused with the bologna into a kind of edible laminate, and the lettuce, if it makes an appearance, is limp and see-through, like an old shower curtain. Till you chew stoically. There's honor in eating what you're given, even if it tastes faintly of existential dread. The lunch monitor stalks the aisles, enforcing order with the rattling authority of a Cold War border guard. You risk taking off your sandwich crust, hiding the evidence in your napkin. The kid next to you launches an orange peel like a tactical missile, and you duck instinctively. The apple rolls to the end of the table where it's claimed by someone braver or hungrier. Finally, lunch ends with a great disposal, the collective march to the trash cans where bruised fruit and half-eaten sandwiches meet their doom. You pack up, hoping for better luck tomorrow, maybe peanut butter or at least a pudding that's still cold. Congratulations. You've survived another round in the lunchroom arms race, clutching your empty lunch bag like a treaty signed under duress. Victory is measured not in calories, but in memories, sweet, sticky, and just a little bit absurd. Your parents have mastered the ancient art of expressing rage through clenched teeth and pointed silences. Dad's disciplined style is equal parts sighing and long disappointed glances. You live in fear of the phrase, "We need to have a talk." The house vibrates with a quiet, simmering tension like a sitcom, soundtrack with the laughter turned off. The 1980s parent is a marvel of passive intensity, capable of delivering a week's worth of scolding with a single meaningful pause. Volume is for amateurs. A truly skilled parent wields silence as both sword and shield. You remember every moment leading up to that inevitable talk, the clatter of a dropped plate, the accidental dent in the station wagon, the sibling squabble that ended in tears, and the shattering of something ceramic and vaguely sentimental. The response is always the same, the slow, deliberate removal of Dad's glasses, the pursed lips, the silence so heavy you can hear the kitchen clock ticking its disapproval. Your mother, for her part, deploys her own arsenal of discipline. The sharp inhale, the laser-precision eyebrow raise, the hands on hips, apron flapping. With each sigh, she doesn't yell. She expresses her concern in a tone so low and controlled you wonder if she's actually a government interrogator. On weekends, punishments arrive like weather fronts, predictable but somehow always catching you off guard. Grounded means exile to your room, a place stripped of fun, electronics and dignity, where you're forced to contemplate your choices in the beige wallpaper. Sometimes you're sentenced to write a formal apology, an exercise in literary regret that will be read aloud at the dinner table. The mere threat of this fate is enough to keep you walking the straight and narrow for at least 36 hours. If the crime is especially grave, you face the ultimate in 80 seconds consequences, the disappointed talk. Dad sits at the edge of the bed, hands folded, voice soft and even. "I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed." It's the emotional equivalent of a meteor strike. You'd prefer he'd just shout. At least then you could respond, defend yourself, maybe even muster a tear for tactical advantage. But no, he lets the silence swell, a slow-motion guilt tsunami, until you finally confess to crimes you didn't even commit just to make it stop. The most advanced parental technique, however, is the group discipline session. We need to have a family. We meeting. The phrase is delivered with the gravitas of a hostage negotiation. Everyone sits in a circle in the living room, perched nervously on the edge of faded corduroy sofas. Mom and Dad take turns explaining the importance of communication, while you and your siblings exchange frantic glances, silently blaming each other for the family's current crisis, a missing TV remote, a shattered heirloom, a mysterious dent in the hallway drywall. No matter how heated the subject, voices rarely rise above a conversational hum. The threat is always implicit. We're not mad, just very, very concerned. In 80 seconds parent code, this means we are furious, but saving it for therapy. You study their faces, looking for clues. Dad's brow furrowed, Mom's lips pressed tight, their sentences so measured you could use them to calibrate a Swiss watch. And of course, there is always the list, a running tally of your misdeeds, trotted out during moments of peak disappointment. It's recited with the precision of a court stenographer. This isn't just about the vase. It's also about the late homework, the muddy shoes, the science project we're still finding baking soda from. You realize quickly that in 1980s discipline, nothing is ever truly forgotten, just filed away for a future monologue. After the lecture, you're dismissed, left to ponder your fate and the cryptic nature of adult emotions. The house returns to its muted hum, the only evidence of conflict a slightly louder exhale and maybe a door that closes with just a bit too much finality. Congratulations. You've survived another lesson in the art of yelling quietly, emerging slightly older, marginally wiser, and ready to interpret silence as the loudest sound of all. The station wagon is both a vehicle and a rolling archive of lost French fries. Every family trip is punctuated by the scent of vinyl, cigarette smoke, and the distant echoes of someone's spilled milk, seatbelts a rumor at best. The morning sun glints off the faux wood paneling as you pile into the car, jostling for position like gladiators in a polyester coliseum. The air inside is thick, equal parts new car smell air, freshener, and the unmistakable tang of decades-old upholstery. Somewhere in the back, a window cranks down with a grinding noise that's half mechanical, half existential. Your father is captain of this ship, his domain marked by a collection of mysterious knobs, a half-empty thermos, and a glove compartment filled with nothing useful. He adjusts the mirrors with ritual seriousness, then slaps the dashboard 3 times, a superstitious tick meant to ward off breakdowns. In the front passenger seat, your mother shuffles a stack of coupons, a road atlas, and an emergency roll of paper towels that has at one point mopped up everything from spilled soda to tears of defeat. You and your siblings scramble into the back seat, fighting over whose turn it is to sit by the window. The way back, that hallowed rear-facing row, is reserved for the brave, the exiled, or the child with the least motion sickness. Once seated, you're immediately surrounded by the relics of road trips past, a petrified gummy bear stuck to the armrest, a coloring book with every page scribbled in neon marker, and a McDonald's toy that's fused to the floor mat by an ancient sticky ooze. Seat belts, theoretically present, are mostly wedged between the seats or so tangled. Any attempt to wear one becomes a logic puzzle. Just tuck it behind your back, your mom says, as if this is perfectly sound advice in a sudden stop. You're pretty sure the only thing holding you in during a turn is centrifugal force and a sibling's outstretched arm. The soundtrack of every drive is a blend of AM radio, static, and the urgent clicking of the lighter as your dad prepares his morning cigarette. The window cracks open just enough to let in a blast of cold air, but somehow never enough to actually air out the smoke. You inhale a cocktail of tobacco, pine-scented air freshener, and the faintest whiff of yesterday's leftover French fries. Every surface in the car is slightly sticky. You suspect this is a factory feature. The cup holders are graveyards for change, stray Cheerios, and the occasional melted crayon. Somewhere under the driver's seat, a single ancient French fry has fossilized, quietly observing the passing decades. When the car hits a bump, you can hear something rattling. Maybe loose tools, maybe the hopes and dreams of every child who's ever done time on a family road trip. Family outings are an exercise in negotiation and endurance. The windows fog with each exhale, occasionally etched with the artwork of bored children, or in moments of desperation, wiped clear with a sleeve. Your brother flicks a paper, football towards the front, earning a withering glare from the rearview mirror. Snacks are distributed with the solemnity of a sacrament, individually wrapped cheese slices, a Ziploc bag of questionable grapes, and juice boxes warm enough to steep tea. You eat, anyway, using the back of a TV guide as your plate. Any crumbs that fall are simply orbed into the strata of previous lunches. The trip is punctuated by the soft drone of your dad's monologue, complaints about traffic, the price of gas, or how nobody appreciates a clean car anymore. Your mother reminds everyone to look for cows, as if spotting livestock is a competitive sport. You try not to make eye contact with the weird hula girl glued to the dashboard, who seems to shake her head in silent judgment at your family's life choices. Eventually, someone asks the forbidden question, "Are we there yet?" The answer is always no, and you settle back, lulled by the rhythmic bounce of the shocks and the certainty that no matter how far you travel, you'll never escape the smell of spilled milk, or the knowledge that somewhere in the depths of the seat cushions your lost allowance is quietly collecting interest. Congratulations. You've survived another trip in the family's mobile ashtray, a true marvel of American engineering and a testament to the resilience of children raised on vinyl, second-hand smoke, and hope. You arrive at school, a gladiatorial arena of denim jackets, hairspray, and low-level bullying. Teachers assign worksheets with the weary resignation of people who have given up hope. You're taught everything except how to process emotions. The first thing you notice is the smell, part disinfectant, part gym socks, and a faint undertone of chalk, dust, and panic. You shuffle into the hallway, careful not to step in the puddle left by someone's leaking backpack or the tears of whoever just found out their trapper keeper got stolen. The lockers line the walls like miniature vaults, each one decorated with peeling stickers, cryptic graffiti, and the desperate pleas of students who have lost the combination for the third time this month. Every classroom is a battlefield of social hierarchy. The cool kids hold court near the windows, sunlight bouncing off their perfectly feathered hair like a signal flare. The rest of you are arranged in a complex ecosystem. Nerds clutching Dungeons and Dragons manuals, goths huddled together in silent solidarity, and the band kids assembling their instruments with the focus of a pit crew at the Indy 500. If you're lucky, you can camouflage yourself somewhere in the middle, invisible, but not unpopular enough to become a target. Your teacher, a weary veteran of the chalkboard wars, stands at the front of the room brandishing a dry erase marker that hasn't written properly since Reagan's first term. Lessons are delivered in monotone, multiplication tables, the preamble to the Constitution, a brief and confusing explanation of the Dewey Decimal System. There is an entire unit on how to balance a checkbook, but nothing about how to tell someone you have a crush on them, or what to do with all the anxieties swirling inside your turtleneck. Hygiene is as dicey proposition. The bathrooms are tiled in a color best described as institutional despair. The soap dispensers are always empty, and the hand dryers blow air colder than the average recess in February. You learn early on to avoid drinking from the water fountain after the third period. By then, it's more bacteria than water. The cafeteria is no safer. A sea of sticky tables and the faint haunting memory of yesterday's sloppy joes. Navigating social life requires equal parts cunning speed and the ability to endure embarrassment. Someone will inevitably call you a poser, weirdo. Or if they're feeling creative, invent a nickname based on a minor wardrobe malfunction that will follow you into adulthood. The schoolyard is both a sanctuary and a war zone. Kickball games with unspoken alliances, 4 square matches where grudges are born, and the slow, tense line at the payphone as you pretend to call your mom but actually just want to look busy. Hair is a survival strategy, all its own. The unspoken rule is simple: the bigger the better. You borrow hairspray from a friend, careful not to asphyxiate, and sculpt your bangs into a monument to hope and aerosol technology. A rogue gust of wind is your mortal enemy. The popular kid's hair seems to defy the laws of physics. Impervious to both gravity and teacher scorn, you learn to keep your head down, do your homework, and never, under any circumstances, admit you actually like the recorder unit in music class. Your emotional education comes from the occasional after-school special on TV featuring earnest kids hugging out their trauma, or from a trusted friend who, despite never making eye contact, will quietly share a pack of fruit roll-ups after a rough day. At the final bell, you burst into the hallway, clutching your homework and dignity in equal measure. You survived. Another day in the Darwinian petri dish that is 1980s school, untouched by real empathy but armed with feathered hair and the knowledge that in this jungle, blending in is sometimes the most powerful skill of all. At home, your siblings are both your greatest enemies and only allies. Every interaction is a negotiation, one involving threats, bribes, and occasionally a well-thrown TV remote. The kitchen, your diplomatic headquarters, the living room your battlefield, and the hallway a demilitarized zone where ceasefires are tenuous at best. The day begins with a struggle for resources, the last bowl of name-brand cereal, the only unwrinkled pair of tube socks, or if you're feeling bold, the shower with hot water left. Every victory is fleeting, every loss a strategic setback you'll brood over until next Wednesday. There are rules of engagement, most of them unwritten and enforced with a mixture of intimidation and mutual blackmail. You don't tattle about the time your older sibling sneaked in after curfew, and in exchange they don't mention that you accidentally fed the goldfish pop rocks. You've mastered the art of silent communication. A glare, that means don't you dare. A pointed cough from across the dinner table, the mysterious vanishing of a favorite cassette tape just before your siblings' friends come over. No one is safe from surprise attacks. Pillow fights erupt with no warning and end with someone tripping over a stray shoe or being banished to the far end of the sofa. Remote control. Skirmishes are fought with cunning, sometimes brute force, sometimes a clever distraction involving the family, dog, and a conveniently placed slice of Bologonia. Temporary truces are called only when the parental authorities intervene, or more importantly, when there's a new episode of Knight Rider and you both want to see how Kit escapes this time. Bedrooms are sovereign territories, each with their own customs and carefully defended borders. If you step even a toe into your sibling's room without the proper clearance, usually a bribe of gum or a solemn promise to return borrowed stick, you risk an international incident that could last all week. The ultimate act of war is touching someone else's stuff, a prized action figure, a Walkman, or the holy grail of all 82nd's possessions, a scratch-free VHS tape. Yet, beneath this endless tension, there is an unspoken code of loyalty. Outside is a fair game, but only you are allowed to torment your sibling. Let someone on the school bus call your little brother a dork, and suddenly you're launching a counter-offensive with insults so sharp they could cut through a trapper-keeper. In moments of crisis, like when you both spill grape juice on the new carpet, you can forge an alliance faster than the Berlin Wall fell, covering for each other with stories that would make a Cold War spy proud. Negotiations are constant. You trade half a pack of Great Bubble Yum for help sneaking back inside after missing curfew. You promise to switch laundry days if your sister will pretend to be you on the phone with Grandma. Every deal is made with fingers crossed, and the knowledge that at any moment the balance of power could shift with a single well-placed tattletale. At family dinners, you're forced into close proximity, eating intense silence or exchanging under-the-table kicks. The conversation turns to grades or chores, and suddenly it's every child for themselves. Sibling rivalry turns into a kind of performance art. Your sibling launches a subtle attack. Didn't someone get a D in math? And you parry with a counter-strike about their unfortunate haircut choices. But when night falls and the house quiets, a strange daunt settles in. You might find yourself sharing secrets in the dark or plotting a joint offensive against the parents no dessert on weekdays policy. Maybe you'll even join forces to sneak cookies from the kitchen or to survive the boredom of a Sunday spent at the laundromat. Because as much as you might bicker, sabotage, and compete, your sibling is the one person who understands exactly what it means to survive in your household. Together, you form a shifting temporary alliance, a Cold War daunt with an unspoken promise. In this bizarre battlefield, you're both in it for the long haul, and tomorrow the remote is up for grabs again, and the negotiations begin anew. Evenings mean fighting for control of the single TV. The remote is a brick that could be used as a weapon. The screen is always tuned to the news, Wheel of Fortune, or that one show Dad insists is good for the family. There are only 3 channels and endless arguments. It starts as soon as dinner. Plates hit the sink. Everyone in the house instinctively migrates toward the living room, drawn by the blue glow in the siren song of cathode rays. The television is not just a piece of furniture. It's the undisputed throne of the household, perched on a rickety stand and anchored by a mess of tangled cords and a pair of aluminum rabbit ears that require frequent ritualistic adjustment. Sometimes a wad of tin foil is added to improve reception, which does absolutely nothing except make the room look more like a conspiracy theorist bunker. Securing a good seat is an Olympic sport. You have to move fast, dodge the coffee table, and stake your claim on the couch before your siblings muscle in. The coveted middle spot, close, enough to see, but far enough to avoid being drafted for remote duty, goes to the quickest and most ruthless anyone. Stuck on the floor gets a lumpy pillow and the view partially blocked by a houseplant that's seen better days. And then the remote. It's an object of awe, a hulking grey rectangle with exactly 6 buttons, most of them sticky, all of them mysterious. It weighs more than your lunchbox, and in the wrong hands could do real damage. The moment someone touches it, a hush falls over the room. Negotiations begin. There is no democracy. There are only shifting alliances and the iron will of whoever manages to grab the remote when no one is looking. Dad always wants the news. He pretends it's to stay informed, but you're pretty sure he just likes muttering about the weather forecast and how gas used to be cheaper. When the news is over, the default setting is Wheel of Fortune, which everyone claims not to care about, even though the whole family yells answers at the screen with disturbing intensity. For a glorious 5 minutes, you dream of Saturday morning cartoons, but instead, you get 60 minutes MASH reruns. Or if the stars align, Dad's good for the family program, which usually features at least one farm animal and a vague lesson about honesty. Arguments erupt at regular intervals. Your little brother wants to watch Knight Rider. Your sister insists on Solid Gold for the dancing. You make a desperate pitch for Alf, but nobody's listening. Each show you manage to watch is a hard-won victory, paid for in chores, bribes, or, if necessary, threats of tattling about who broke the lamp last month. Changing the channel is an act of engineering. The remote only works from exactly one angle, and if the batteries are low, you might need to whack it against your knee or jam a pencil into the battery compartment. Sometimes it's easier to just get up and turn the giant dial on the set itself, risking static shocks and parental wrath if you accidentally flip past Dad's show. Commercial breaks are battlegrounds for snack rights and bathroom sprints. Everyone moves at once, and if you're not back in 30 seconds, you lose your seat. The living room transforms into a swirling dance of potato chips, fruit punch, and the occasional elbow to the ribs. Finally, the night winds down. Dad dozes off in his chair, remote in hand, and the screen flickers with late-night reruns. Someone always gets up to adjust the antenna one last time, only to realize that once again the best picture comes from standing in the middle of the room, holding the rabbit ears aloft like a living statue. You head to bed, your ears ringing with game show jingles, newscaster banter, and the memory of your family's endless negotiations. Tomorrow the cycle begins again. 1 TV, 3 channels, and a remote heavy with the burden of power. Congratulations. You've survived another night as remote control royalty. Never quite the king or queen, but always in the running for the next battle. Homework is a nightly ritual performed at a Forica table sticky with the residue of generations of spilled Kool-Aid. You try to do long division, while the family cat launches a guerrilla assault on your notebook. If you find a sharpened pencil, it's a miracle. The kitchen table is your battlefield, lit by a single overhead lamp that buzzes, faintly like it's struggling to remain in the 1980s. The light is too bright in the middle, and too dim everywhere else, which means you're always half squinting, half sighing, and fully regretting every choice that led you here. The surface of the table has a permanent sheen, some combination of grease, juice, and whatever that casserole was last Tuesday. You press your worksheet down, and it makes a soft peeling sound, like the table is reluctant to let go of you. You spread out your school supplies, which are really just whatever survived the day inside your backpack. A crumpled folder, a spiral notebook with the corners bent like it's been through a war, a ruler that smells like cafeteria, pizza. And then you start searching for the one thing standing between you and academic. Collapse, a pencil. There are no pencils. There is, however, a pencil-shaped object with no eraser and teeth marks near the top, suggesting Someone once tried to chew their way out of math. You attempt to sharpen it, but the sharpener is the cheap kind. One twist and it eats the pencil like a wood chipper. Now you have a pencil stump. Congratulations. You've invented the world's saddest writing tool. You look around for alternatives. A pen, forbidden. Your teachers treat pen like a gateway drug, a marker, too thick. A crayon, technically possible, but that's how you end up writing an essay in magenta and explaining to your teacher that you're exploring new forms of expression. Not a great look. Eventually you borrow a pencil from your sibling. The negotiation is tense, like an international hostage exchange. You promise not to lose it. You promise not to chew it. You promise not to hold it weird. You take the pencil like it's the last functioning oxygen tank on a sinking submarine. Now comes the homework itself. You stare at the long division problem. It's Saint. Aries back. It's printed in that faint gray ink that makes everything look like it was created by a ghost. Your brain is tired. Your stomach is full of questionable dinner. Somewhere in the living room, the TV is playing Jeopardy, and you can hear your dad answering confidently and incorrectly. You begin to work. The family cat chooses this moment to begin its nightly campaign of psychological warfare. It leaps onto the table like a furry missile, sprawls directly on your worksheet, and starts licking itself, with the slow confidence of someone who pays no bills. You try to move it, but the cat digs in like it owns the mortgage. You scoot your notebook around the cat's body and attempt to do math in the tiny space left behind as if this is normal. Your mother passes through the kitchen, carrying laundry like she's been doing it since the dawn of time, which in the 80s she basically has. She pauses, sees you struggling, and says something soothing like, "You better get that done or you'll regret it later." And then she leaves. No help, no explanation, just a vague warning about the future. Like, homework is a prophecy, and you're about to be punished by the gods of arithmetic. Your pencil begins to dull. You try to sharpen it again. The sharpener eats another chunk. You're now working with something roughly the size of a toothpick. Every time you write, your fingers cramp. Your eraser leaves pink smudges everywhere like your mistakes are bleeding out onto the paper. Meanwhile, your sibling is doing their homework too. But somehow they're thriving. They're flipping pages, highlighting, underlining, smiling. You hate them, but quietly. The 1980s doesn't allow open emotional, nesty. You bottle it up like a Capri Sun. The clock ticks. The house grows quieter. Your dad falls asleep in his chair. The TV hisses softly. The kitchen smells like dish soap and faint despair. At last, you finish the last problem, exhausted, smudged with graphite, and spiritually older. You stack your papers neatly, knowing full well you will forget them on the counter tomorrow. And as you finally stand up and shuffle toward bed, you realize the real lesson of 1980s homework wasn't math. It was endurance. Also the fact that pencils were apparently more rare than gold. And somehow you survived. The Tupperware cabinet is an unstable Jenga tower. Each time you open it, you risk a plastic avalanche in a lecture about wasting money. None of the lids fit any of the containers, but that's tomorrow's problem. You approach it slowly, like a bomb squad technician with a mild fear of disappointment. It sits above the counter like an ancient cursed tomb, quiet, innocent, pretending it doesn't contain chaos. But you know the truth. Everyone in the house knows the truth. This cabinet has its own weather system, its own gravitational pull. It doesn't store food containers. It stores tension. All you want is something simple. Maybe a container for leftover spaghetti. Maybe a lid for the casserole dish your mother is aggressively pretending she didn't burn. Maybe a little plastic tub to bring cookies to school without them turning into a sugar dust avalanche in your lunch bag. But the moment you wrap your fingers around the cabinet handle, you feel the invisible presence of your mother's spirit hovering behind you. Not physically, spiritually. The cabinet opens with a soft creak, and instantly you're greeted by a confusing mosaic of colors. Faded turquoise, sickly yellow, that weird translucent brown that makes every container look like it's already holding old soup. Some pieces are warped from the dishwasher. Some are stained permanently orange from spaghetti sauce. Some appear to be made from the same plastic as action figure limbs. You barely breathe as you open the door because you know one wrong move could trigger the collapse. These containers are stacked with the reckless confidence of a toddler building a tower out of blocks. A large bowl balances on a smaller bowl. A container lid is wedged sideways between two cups like it was placed there by an exhausted archaeologist. And somewhere deep inside you can see a mysterious object that might be a lid or might be part of the vacuum cleaner. You carefully slide one container out. 3 lids fall. One hits you in the shoulder. Another bounces onto the counter. A third slides under the stove, never to be seen again, where it will presumably join the fossilized French fries and form a new civilization. The cabinet remains open, vibrating, slightly as if offended. You reach in again, trying to find a lid that matches anything, but the lids are like snowflakes, unique, misplaced, and somehow always the wrong size. You hold one up to a container, and it's almost right, almost. Like a tragic love story. The corners don't align, the seal doesn't close, the lid sits on top, mocking you with its near compatibility. And then you hear it. The sigh, not a loud one, not dramatic. Just that perfectly calibrated 1980s parental sigh that says, I have been holding this family together with dish soap and rage since 976. Your mom appears behind you, arms crossed, expression calm but deadly. This is her cabinet, her territory, her emotional battlefield. She doesn't even need to speak. Her eyes say everything. You attempt a weak explanation. I just needed a container. She nods slowly, as if you've just confessed to sabotaging the economy. Then she begins the lecture, a smooth, practiced monologue that she could deliver in her sleep. Do you know how much those cost? Do you think money grows on trees? Do you think we're made of plastic? And the strangest part is, she is correct. These containers did cost money. They were purchased at one of those 80s living room Tupperware parties where women drank punch, whispered about Carol's divorce, and bought stackable containers like they were investing in the future. These weren't just storage items. These were symbols. They represented adulthood, domestic competence, control. And now you've caused a lid incident. Your mom begins restacking the cabinet with the precision of a military engineer. She presses lids into place like she's sealing ancient tombs. She balances bowls perfectly. She mutters under her breath about how nobody appreciates anything, and you just stand there holding your useless container, feeling like you've betrayed the family legacy. You try one more time to find the right lid, but the truth is undeniable. It doesn't exist. The matching lid disappeared years ago, possibly eaten by the same cosmic force that consumed socks in the dryer. It is gone. And your mother knows it. But she refuses to admit it, because admitting it would mean accepting chaos. It would mean acknowledging the cabinet is not a system, it's a lie. So, you choose a lid that's close enough and gently place it on top. It doesn't snap, it doesn't seal, it sits there loosely like a hat. That doesn't fit. Your mom watches you silent. Then she says in the calm voice of someone trying not to start a war, tomorrow you're cleaning this cabinet out. And just like that, the cabinet door closes. The plastic jungle returns to silence. And you walk away knowing you've survived yet another small domestic horror of 1980s life. Not a war, exactly, but definitely a battle. And you can't make this up. The family dog is an emotional sponge, soaking up every argument and leftover casserole. He's lived on a diet of table scraps and questionable treats. And yet, somehow he's the healthiest member of the household. You don't remember when the dog became part of the family. He's always just been there. Like the couch, like the smell of the carpet, like the mysterious dent in the hallway drywall that nobody talks about. He's a medium-sized mutt, with a name like Buddy or Duke or something equally vague and optimistic. He has one ear that always flops slightly wrong, a tail that thumps like a drum whenever someone enters the room, and the kind of eyes that say, I have seen things, and I would still like a bite of your sandwich. He's the only creature in the house who doesn't judge you. which is impressive because he has watched you cry over homework, eat cereal for dinner, and attempt to style your hair into something the school photo camera won't interpret as tragic. The dog accepts it all. He is unconditional love wrapped in shedding fur and the faint scent of outdoors. In the 1980s family home, the dog is more than a pet. He is the unofficial therapist. When mom and dad argue in the kitchen about money, the dog quietly lies under the table, ears twitching, absorbing every tense syllable. When your siblings scream at each other over the TV remote, the dog retreats to the hallway like a veteran who survived this war before. When you get grounded and collapse onto your bed in defeat, the dog follows you in and places his heavy head on your leg like a warm, silent apology for the world. He doesn't fix anything, but he makes you feel like it might be fixable. And the dog's diet is disturbing. His official food comes in a giant bag with a picture of a very confidential-looking golden retriever on the front. The kibble itself smells like crushed vitamins and broken dreams, but the dog rarely survives on kibble alone. No, he's living like a king on the scraps of your family's daily chaos. Meatloaf crusts, cold hot dog ends, the corner of a grilled cheese sandwich your sibling refused to eat because it touched the plate wrong. Sometimes when mom is in a generous mood, she gives him a treat, usually one of those dry bone-shaped biscuits that looks like it was carved from compressed sawdust. Other times, she tosses him something she calls a little snack, which might be half a slice of bologna wrapped around a piece of cheese. He catches it mid-air, like a trained athlete, tail wagging, eyes gleaming with gratitude and cholesterol. The dog is also the household's vacuum cleaner. If you drop food on the floor, you have approximately 3 seconds before the dog arrives like an emergency cleanup crew. Crumbs, chips, cereal, half a cookie that rolled under the table. He hoovers everything up with the efficiency of a machine built for one purpose: consumption. In many ways, he is the only reason the carpet isn't fully coated in old snacks and regret. And yet somehow he is thriving. While the humans in this house are fueled by caffeine, stress, and condensed soup-based casseroles, the dog is vibrant. His coat is shiny. His eyes are bright. His energy is endless. He races through the backyard like he's training for the Olympics, even though his last meal included a suspicious amount of gravy and something your mom called just a little bit of ham fat. He naps with the confidence of someone who has never paid a bill. His schedule is simple. Patrol the neighborhood for squirrels, bark at the mailman like it's his sacred duty, and then return indoors to emotionally stabilize the entire family without anyone thanking him. He's loyal, patient, and slightly gassy. Sometimes late at night, when the house goes quiet and the television hum fades into silence, the dog shifts in his sleep and lets out a small sigh. It's a deep, contented exhale, like he's processing the day's chaos and filing it away somewhere safe. You watch him for a moment, feeling strangely calm, because, in a world of loud parents, tense dinners, and sibling warfare, the dog is the one constant. He doesn't care about grades. He doesn't care about appearance. He doesn't care about the fact that your mother just cried quietly while folding laundry. He just wants to sit near you, love you, and maybe, if you're not looking, eat the last bite of casserole off your plate. And honestly, that's probably the healthiest coping mechanism anyone in the house has. Dinner is a time for togetherness and thinly veiled resentment. Conversation topics include grades, the price of gas, and why you shouldn't talk back. The only thing more dangerous than disagreeing is refusing seconds. You take your seat at the table like you're reporting for duty. The dining area smells like brown meat, boiled, vegetables, and whatever canned ingredient your mother just experimented with because it was on sale. The table itself is covered with a vinyl tablecloth printed with fruit that looks vaguely diseased. If your elbow sticks to it when you lean forward, that's just the price of family unity. The meal arrives in a series of serving dishes that clatter onto the table with authority. There's always one casserole, always. It could be tuna, noodles, and cream of something. It could be potatoes, ham, and a mysterious layer of crushed crackers. It could be something that was originally intended to be lasagna, but became a bake halfway through because nobody in this house has time for structure. Your mother takes the first seat, setting down her fork like she's placing a gavel. Your father appears next, loosening his tie with a sigh and settling into his chair like he's about to judge a court case. Your siblings shuffle in, already tense from their day, their hunger making them more aggressive than usual. The dog is stationed nearby, eyes fixed on the table with unwavering devotion, like a furry little witness to the entire event. Everyone begins eating immediately because dinner in the 1980s is not something you savor, it's something you survive. For the first few minutes, the only sounds are chewing, clinking utensils, and the distant hum of the television in the living room. This silence is not peaceful. It's the kind of silence where everyone is waiting for something to go wrong, like a suspense movie, but with meatloaf. Then the conversation begins. Dad clears his throat, which is the official signal that the evening's emotional cross-examination is about to start. He asks about school. This is not a question. This is a draw. Appy, you answer, carefully. Fine. Your father nods slowly as if you've just said something deeply suspicious. Fine, he repeats, testing the word like it might contain lies. And then it happens. Grades. Your mother asks about your math test. Your sister suddenly becomes fascinated by her mashed potatoes. Your brother stares into space like he's mentally relocating to another family. You give a vague number, hoping it's acceptable, but you can already feel the air shifting. Dad's fork slows down. Mom's eyes narrow slightly. Somewhere in the room, a dog tail stops wagging. Your father launches into a lecture that begins with responsibility and ends with a reminder that we didn't have it this easy when we were kids. He mentions walking to school. He mentions working hard. He mentions the price of gas. Somehow everything connects back to gas. You chew your food quietly, nodding, just enough to appear respectful while also calculating how quickly you can escape to your room after this without looking suspicious. But leaving early is impossible. Dinner is a ritual. You don't leave the table until you're dismissed, like a medieval servant who's done too little sweeping. Then comes the most dangerous moment of the entire meal. The offer of seconds. Your mother leans forward and asks, "Do you want more?" This is not about hunger. This is not about food. This is about gratitude. It is about showing appreciation for the work she did, the meal she created, and the emotional stability she's barely holding together using canned soup and a wooden spoon. If you say no, you are rejecting her efforts. If you hesitate, you're insulting her. If you say yes, you are committing yourself to a second round of tuna noodle regret. You smile politely and say, "Sure." Your mother immediately piles your plate like she's preparing you for a famine, and you accept it with the quiet resignation of a prisoner who has been offered extra rations. Your father watches approvingly. This is how you win. Not with honesty, not with courage, with compliance. And heaven help you if you talk back. Talking back doesn't mean arguing. It means explaining. It means having your own opinion. It means using a tone that suggests you're a human being and not a slightly disobedient appliance. If you so much as question a statement about school, chores, or why it's your job to take out the trash, you're reminded that you're not an equal. You're a child, a dependent, a small creature still, learning your place. The dinner table is where values are taught, not gently, not kindly, but effectively. Eventually, the meal ends. Plates are scraped. The casserole dish is covered in foil and shoved into the fridge like it's going to live there forever. Your father rises satisfied. Your mother begins cleaning with the speed of someone trying not to think about her own life. Your siblings scatter like startled animals. You step away from the table, stomach full, heart slightly tense and mind buzzing. Congratulations, you've survived dinner, the daily ritual where silence goes to die. Feelings are oppressed, and the only true peace comes when the dishes are done, and nobody speaks again until breakfast. Chores are dowled out with military precision. Vacuuming the stairs is a rite of passage. Dusting is performed with a can of lemon's guilt. No one knows where the dust comes from, but everyone is sure it's our fault. It begins with the list printed in cursive, taped to the fridge, and color-coded with a highlighter that ran out in 1983. The chore list is sacred law. You don't question it. You don't interpret it. You simply obey. Every family member has assignments strategically distributed to cause the maximum amount of resentment with the minimum amount of effectiveness. Your job this week, vacuuming the stairs and wiping down surfaces, which sounds simple until you realize surfaces means everything from the TV screen to the weird ceramic duck that collects pennies on the sideboard. Vacuuming the stairs is a punishment disguised as responsibility. First, you have to drag the vacuum, an industrial beige monstrosity that weighs as much as a small horse, up each step like you're reenacting Everest with less oxygen and more extension cords. The hose flails behind you like an angry robot tail, knocking into walls and threatening to decapitate anyone who passes by too quickly. You plug it in and the whole house dims slightly like the vacuum is drawing power directly from your will to live. You begin. Each stair is coated in mysterious lint, microscopic rocks, and unidentifiable fuzz that somehow returns the moment you vacuum it. It's a Sisyphean task. You make it halfway up before the vacuum starts wheezing like it's dying of emphysema. You jiggle the cord, thump the side with your fist, whisper threats. Eventually it sputters back to life grudgingly. Then there's dusting. Dusting is less a task and more a performance. You carry the lemon-scented spray bottle like a sacred relic, misting everything in your path and wiping with a rag that has clearly been repurposed from an old gym shirt. The scent is overwhelming. It's supposed to smell like citrus, but it actually smells like lies and the distant memory of pledge. Your mother passes through as you work, arms crossed, eyebrow arched. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to. Her silence says, "I would have done it better." And she's right. Somehow, no matter how hard you try, she always finds dust you missed. She runs a single judging finger across the bookshelf and holds it up like it's evidence in court. Dust again, as if you personally created it through neglect and moral weakness. The worst chore, though, the bathroom. You draw the short straw again. You enter the avocado green horror armed with gloves and a sponge. That's been living in the undersink abyss since the Carter administration. The cleaning products are labeled things like Tile Slayer and Lime Be Gone. One of them fizzes when it touches air. You spray it anyway. The toilet stares at you. The tub judges you. The mirror is foggy with the reflection of someone who no longer believes in hope. And then, just as you're making progress, your sibling casually strolls in eating a Pop-Tart and announces you missed a spot. You briefly consider violence. Instead, you spray lemon fresh directly in their general direction and go back to scrubbing grout like it's your life's calling. But here's the twist. You're not alone. Chores in the 1980s are a group punishment. No one is ever really done because as soon as you finish one task, another mysteriously appears. The laundry pile regenerates like it's under a dark spell. Dishes multiply in the sink like rabbits. Dust forms behind you as you clean. You live in a domestic ecosystem that seems deter, mine to break your spirit through mild inconvenience. Eventually the house is clean, or at least clean enough. You smell like pine sol, defeat, and modest triumph. Your parents inspect your work with vague approval. Your reward, maybe a slice of Jell-O from the fridge, maybe a pat on the back. Maybe, if you're lucky, a night without hearing the phrase, "You call this clean. Congratulations, you've survived weaponized domesticity where chores are never ending. Praise is minimal, and the vacuum is somehow louder than your dreams. And the dust, it'll be back tomorrow. And yes, it'll still be your fault. The home phone is a battleground, the cord a tripwire. Every call is monitored by parents who believe eavesdropping is just good parenting. There is no privacy, only the gentle click of someone quietly listening in from the hallway. The phone sits on the kitchen wall like A sacred artifact mounted on a little shelf that holds a stack of paper, a pen that never works, and an address book filled with names written in increasingly frantic handwriting. The receiver is heavy, serious. It feels like something you could use to defend the house if the Cold War suddenly became personal. The cord, spiral, stretched and permanently tangled, dangles like a snake that has survived multiple battles. It's the kind of cord that gets wrapped around your ankle, your wrist, and your dignity all at once. If you've ever tried to untangle Christmas lights while being judged by your entire family, you already understand what it feels like to walk away from this phone mid-call, and the moment it rings, your whole body reacts. The sound is sharp, startling, and full of authority. It's not a general Claire ringtone. It's an alarm. It's an announcement. It's the house yelling. Attention. Someone may be about to feel emotions. Your mother picks it up half the time, and she does it in the exact same way every time. Sweet voice, perfectly polite, already suspicious. "Hello," she says, as if expecting the person on the other end to confess to a crime. If it's for you, she holds the receiver out like it's a live grenade. "It's your friend," she says. Not their name, not who it is, just your friend. You grab the phone, immediately aware of the audience you now have. Your siblings hover near the doorway, pretending to drink water or inspect a cabinet. Your father is in the living room reading the paper, but you can feel him listening anyway. Everyone in this house has the hearing of a bat when it comes to your personal business. You step away from the kitchen and the cord follows you, stretching across the floor like a trap set by nature. You walk carefully, are slowly dragging the receiver into the hallway, trying to create distance, some illusion of privacy, but privacy in the 1980s is a myth. It's like unicorns or affordable housing. You speak in code. If your friend asks who you like, you say, "You know that thing we talked about." If you're planning to meet somewhere, you say that place at the time with the stuff. Everything is vague. Everything is suspicious. Every word feels like it could be used as evidence later in a future parental interrogation. And then comes the click. A soft, subtle sound. The second phone line. Someone upstairs just picked up the extension. You freeze mid-sentence. This is the 80 seconds version of being watched. There is no notification, no warning, just the T click. And the sudden knowledge that your mother is now listening while pretending she's just checking if the line is free. You continue talking carefully, politely, like you're speaking at a press conference. Your friend laughs on the other end, and you laugh too, but in a slightly higher pitch. The pitch of someone trying to seem innocent while being monitored by a government agency. Then your mom walks past you in the hallway carrying laundry, moving slowly, pretending she isn't listening. Her face is neutral. Too neutral. That's how you know she's hearing everything. You attempt to end the call quickly. You say goodbye 8 times. You do the polite, Midwestern farewell, even if you don't live in the Midwest, because hanging up too fast looks suspicious. When you finally place the receiver back on the cradle, you hear your mom's voice drift from the kitchen. "Who was that?" You answer, "Just a friend." She nods like she already knows, like she has a file on this friend, like she'll bring this conversation up in 3 months during dinner at the worst possible moment when you're chewing too slowly. Later, you make an outgoing call. It takes effort. First, you check the kitchen to make sure no one is nearby. Then you dial carefully, the rotary wheel clicking dramatically back into place with each number like you're summoning someone from another dimension. If you dial wrong, you have to start over, and you will dial because anxiety makes your fingers stupid. If you're lucky, the person answers. If you're unlucky, their parent answers first, and you have to do the terrifying ritual of speaking to an adult you barely know. "Hi. May I please speak to a Jamie?" There's always a Use, always a suspicious silence, and then the adult says, "Who is this?" The question is so intense you forget your own name. Finally, after all of it, the click, the cord, the eavesdropping, the awkward adult interrogation, you return to your room, emotionally exhausted, like you've survived a hostage negotiation instead of a 10-minute conversation about homework and whether anyone saw the new episode of Alf. Congratulations. You have successfully used the family phone, America's greatest invention and also the least private device ever created. In the 1980s, your secrets weren't safe. They were just temporarily on hold. Dad's recliner is off limits, shrouded in mystery and Dorito crumbs. Woe to anyone who tries to sit there. The punishment is swift, the judgment eternal. The chair sits in the living room like a monument. It's not just furniture, it's a symbol, a landmark, a sacred site protected by unspoken laws older than the shag carpet itself. The recliner is upholstered in brown fabric that once may have been soft but now has the texture of dried oatmeal. The armrests are permanently darkened by years of skin oils, spilled coffee, and the occasional accidental mustard smear. It smells faintly of aftershave, stale popcorn, and the deep emotional exhaustion of working adults in the Reagan era. You do not sit in it. You don't even lean on it. You walk around it the way you'd walk around a sleeping bear, not because it's alive, but because it might as well be. This chair has presence, authority. It has absorbed so many evenings of Dad, collapsing into it that it now carries his spirit like a throne infused with royal power and television static. Even when Dad isn't the chair feels occupied because the recliner represents rules, it represents order, it represents the quiet threat that Dad could appear at any moment, like a suburban Batman emerging from the garage with a briefcase and a sigh. The living room itself seems arranged around the chair. The TV faces it. The lamp is positioned to give it perfect lighting. The side table holds Dad's objects of importance, a coffee mug the size of a soup bowl, a half-finished crossword puzzle, and a remote control worn smooth from constant use. There is also a mysterious small bowl filled with loose change, screws, and at least one tiny plastic piece that belongs to something in the house, but no one knows what. Dad calls it important. You call it the artifact pile. Somewhere in the seat cushions, there are Dorito crumbs, ancient ones. Crumbs from the early days of cable television. Crumbs from football games. Crumbs from arguments that ended with Dad muttering, "I work all day and this is what I come home to." The crumbs are part of the chair now. They're its foundation, its inheritance. If archaeologists excavated this recliner 1,000 years from now, they would find a complete fossil record of the family's snack choices. Sometimes you stare at it and wonder what it would feel like to sit there, to sink into it, to recline, to experience the power. But you know better, because the one time you even think about sitting there, something happens. The atmosphere shifts, the room gets quieter, the dog looks up, your siblings freeze mid-breath. Even the TV seems to dim, slightly, as if preparing for judgment. Mom might walk past and casually say, "Don't sit in your father's chair," not in a threatening way, not even harshly, just in that tone that says, "You're about to commit a sin you cannot undo." And if you ignore her, if you sit, the punishment is swift. Dad will enter the room, see you in the chair, and stop moving entirely. He won't shout no. That would be too easy. He will stand there silent like a disappointed statue. Then he will say your name slowly, not angrily, worse, with disbelief, as if he's discovered you stealing company secrets. And you will scramble out of the chair, apologizing immediately, even if you're only sitting for 6 seconds. Because the chair isn't about comfort, it's about respect. It's about territory. It's about Dad having one single place in the house that belongs only to him in a world where everyone keeps touching his tools and asking him to fix the VCR. Dad needs this chair. This is where he watches the news, where he dozes off mid-wheel of fortune, where he holds the remote like a scepter, where he silently processes the day's emotional burdens by leaning back and letting the chair swallow him whole. If you're lucky, he will fall asleep there, mouth slightly open, one sock half off, and you'll watch him for a moment. This powerful household ruler reduced to a snoring man in a recliner, dreaming of peace and zero responsibilities. And in that moment you realize the chair is not just his throne, it's his escape pod, his bunker, his tiny little kingdom where no one can ask him to do anything unless the TV loses reception. Then suddenly he's awake, and you are immediately blamed because of course you are. Congratulations. You have successfully navigated Dad's chair, the throne of authority, the temple of television, and D, the most dangerous object in the entire living room. Touch it, and the judgment is eternal. But admire it from a safe distance, and you live to see another day. The backyard is where children are sent to get some fresh air and contemplate the futility of suburban life. The grass is always in need of mowing, and the only wildlife is an angry squirrel and a faded slip and slide. You step outside, through the squeaky screen door, and immediately get hit with the smell of freshly cut grass, damp dirt and hot plastic. The sunlight is sharp and slightly judgmental, like it knows you haven't done your homework yet. Somewhere nearby, a neighbor is mowing their lawn, the engine roaring like a tiny airplane determined to remind you that peace is not allowed in Suburbia. The backyard is not so much a place as it is a responsibility. It looks simple at first glance: grass, fence, maybe a tree, but it's actually a whole ecosystem of chores and mild danger. There are patches of grass that have given up and turned into dusty dirt. There's a suspicious hole near the fence that your father insists is from a rabbit, but you're pretty sure it's a portal to another dimension. There's a rusty swing set that cacks in the wind like it's haunted by the ghosts of children who got tetanus in 1979. You're out here because your mother used the classic line, "Go outside." You've been in the house all day. This is the 1980s parenting method known as fresh air therapy, where emotional issues are treated by forcing you into sunlight until you either calm down or get bored enough to stop complaining. You take a few steps onto the lawn and feel the grass scratch your ankles. It's not soft. It's never soft. Suburban grass is sharp, uneven, and secretly full of tiny bugs that want to crawl into your socks and start a new life there. The main feature of the backyard is the lawnmower, your dad's pride and joy. It sits in the garage like a sleeping beast, smelling of gasoline and pure authority. When Dad pulls it out, everything changes. The sound alone sends a message to the entire neighborhood. A man is doing something outside. Children stop playing. Dogs stop barking. Someone, too, houses down, immediately decides to mow their lawn, too, because suburban dads operate on a strange psychic schedule. If you're unlucky, Dad calls you out to help. You hold the bag attachment while he empties grass clippings like it's a sacred ritual. Or worse, you're handed the push mower. It's heavy, it's loud, it doesn't move easily. It's like trying to vacuum the earth. You push it across the yard, sweating while your dad watches from the porch with that quiet expression that says, "This builds character." And maybe it does. Or maybe it builds resentment. While you're out here, you spot the wildlife. There's always one angry squirrel. It lives in the tree like it pays rent and hates you personally. It watches you with narrowed eyes, tail twitching like it's planning a small coup. Sometimes it throws something, an acorn, a twig, maybe a warning. You don't know. You just know it wants you to leave. The only other creature around is your family dog, who sprints across the yard in sudden bursts of chaos, chasing imaginary enemies and occasionally digging holes that your father will later discover and blame on you. The dog believes the backyard is an open world adventure game. You believe it's a dust bow. WL with emotional baggage. Then there's the slip and slide. It lies in the corner of the yard like a relic of summer optimism. A long faded strip of blue plastic with grass stains and old tape patches. If it's a hot day, your parents might actually let you set it up, which is the closest thing to joy you'll experience all week. You drag it out, unroll it, and connect the hose. The water trickles out weakly at first, and then suddenly blasts with the full force of suburban plumbing. You run, you slide, you laugh until you hit the end and skid onto the dirt patch that was once grass. You come up with a scraped knee and a mouthful of lawn, but you pretend it's fine because the alternative is being told to walk it off. The backyard is also where you lose things. Toys disappear into the grass. Socks vanish. Baseballs roll over the fence into the neighbor's yard, never to be retrieved because the neighbor is weird. Every summer item you love eventually becomes sun-bleached, cracked, and abandoned in the corner like a symbol of time passing. As the afternoon goes on, the heat settles, the neighborhood hums. You lie in the grass for a moment, listening to the distant sound of sprinklers and lawnmowers staring up at a sky so blue it almost feels fake, and you realize the backyard is where childhood happens, not in grand moments, but in these quiet stretches of boredom and sunlight, surrounded by fences and grass that's always too long. Then your mom calls you inside, and you go, because the backyard may be land of lost dreams, but it's also where you learn to survive being bored without a phone, which is honestly one of the hardest skills humanity has ever invented. Holidays mean Orst Merndt and the annual unboxing of decorations that smell like mothballs and regret. Family gatherings are a minefield of old grudges and dry stuffing. It begins with the boxes. They emerge from the garage or the attic like ancient relics dragged down with dramatic effort and a cloud of dust that immediately triggers at least one family member's seasonal allergies. The cardboard is soft at the corners, stained and labeled in your mom's handwriting. Christmas or Thanksgiving, or the mysterious misc holiday stuff that contains decorations, for no specific celebration but somehow includes a plastic turkey, a broken wreath, and a single strand of Easter eggs. When the box is opened, the smell hits you. It's a perfume of aged pine needles, fading glitter and that faint attic musk that makes you wonder if your lungs are meant to breathe this. The decorations inside are tangled together like they've been wrestling for 11 months straight. Tinsel clings to everything, your hands, your sweater, your hair, like static electricity with a personal vendetta. You pull out a strand of lights and discover half the bulbs are missing. The other half are suspiciously warm, and none of them will work until your father spends 45 minutes muttering at them like he's defusing a bomb. Holidays in the 1980s are not just events, they're logistical operations. Your mother begins planning like she's preparing for a military invasion. She writes lists, she makes calls, she rearranges furniture. She informs everyone that this year we're doing it right, which means you were about to spend 3 hours dusting things nobody normally touches. Meanwhile, your father becomes temporarily obsessed with outdoor lights. He stands on a ladder, stapling wires into the house with grim determination, as if the entire neighborhood is watching, and the fate of the family depends on having the brightest display on the block. He doesn't trust the ladder. He doesn't trust the staple gun. He trusts nobody. Yet he continues because holiday pride is stronger than fear. Inside, the house becomes a battlefield of forced cheer. Holiday music plays on repeat, and by the third time, you hear Jingle Bell Rock. You begin to question your own sanity. The kitchen fills with a smell of butter, onions, and something baking that will either become a masterpiece or a tragedy. Your mother cooks with the intensity of a woman trying to prove something to the universe. Every dish must be perfect. Every dish must be plentiful. Every dish must be served at exactly the right moment or the entire holiday collapses into shame. Then come the relatives. They arrive in waves, bringing casserole dishes wrapped in towels, bags of store-brand rolls, and the emotional energy of a storm front. Coats pile up on the bed, shoes scatter across the floor. Someone immediately turns the thermostat up without asking, and your father's eye begins to twitch. The house fills with noise, laughter, clinking glasses, distant arguments about football, and the constant sound of your aunt explaining how she doesn't use microwaves because of radiation. Someone pinches your cheek. Someone calls you by the wrong name. A cousin you don't really know challenges you to a fight in the basement. You accept because that's what cousins do. Dinner is the main event. The turkey arrives, dry as dust and carved with the solemnity of a sacred ritual. The stuffing is either too wet or too crunchy with no middle ground. The mashed potatoes form a mound that could be used as emergency shelter. There is gravy, thin, brown, and poured generously like it's the solution to all conflict. Someone compliments your mother's cooking and you can see her soften for a brief moment as if all the stress was worth it. Then the conversation shifts. Politics, money, old family stories that start funny and end with someone storming into the hallway. The holiday table becomes a minefield. Everyone is smiling, but you can feel the tension under the surface, like the tablecloth is hiding a live wire. Someone mentions an inheritance. Someone brings up that one time Uncle Gary got drunk in 1978. Your mom's smile becomes tighter. Your dad begins staring intensely at the cranberry sauce, as if it owes him money, and yet somehow it works. Between the awkward jokes and the forced hugs, there are moments of real warmth, a shared laugh, a kid falling asleep under a blanket, your grandfather quietly nodding off in the recliner, the dog stealing a piece of turkey when no one's looking. These small moments slip, in soft and unexpected, like tiny holiday miracles. Eventually, the night winds down, relatives leave, dishes pile up, your house is filled with the scent of leftovers and exhaustion. Your mom sinks into a chair like she's run a marathon. Your dad loosens his belt, sighing deeply. You retreat to your room full of food and complicated feelings. Congratulations, you've survived another 1980s holiday, equal parts turkey, tinsel, and tension, a celebration of family and also a reminder that joy in this era always comes with a side of dry stuffing and emotio. Null landmines. And for some reason, everyone still does it again next year. You're forced to shop for new clothes under the flickering lights of a mall food court. Every outfit is picked by someone with a vendetta against comfort or dignity. You return home with a neon windbreaker and a new appreciation for nudity. The mall announces itself before you even enter. You smell it first. Fried food, cinnamon pretzels, cheap perfume, and the faint plastic scent of brand new sneakers. The parking lot is a chaotic landscape of station wagons and sedans, each one shimmering with heat and parental frustration. Your father drives slowly, scanning for a space like he's hunting prey. Your mother grips her purse like a weapon. You and your siblings slump in the back seat, already tired, already preparing for emotional damage. Inside, the mall is a cathedral of consumerism. The air conditioning hits you like a cold slap, and you're immediately blinded by fluorescent lights that make everyone look slightly sick. The floor is polished to a shine that feels suspicious, like it's hiding something. Soft, echoing music plays from nowhere and everywhere, the kind of music designed to calm you into buying things you don't need. You walk past storefronts like you're passing through different kingdoms. There's the shoe store that smells like rubber in desperation. There's the jewelry kiosk where someone tries to sell your mother a gold chain and your father looks like he wants to leave his body. There's the arcade glowing faintly in the distance, like a siren call promising freedom, noise, and the sweet release of spending, quarters on meaningless victory. But you're not here for fun. You're here for clothes. Your mother has a mission. We're getting you something nice. This is never a good sign. She drags you into a department store that feels like a maze built by someone who hates children. Racks stretch endlessly, sorted by size and color and emotional suffering. You brush past sweaters that itch just by looking at them. You pass mannequins dressed like adults pretending to be teenagers, pretending to be adults. Everything is louder than it should be. Patterns, colors, fabrics, all screaming for attention in a way that feels aggressive. Then your mother begins selecting outfits. And by selecting, we mean choosing garments designed to erase everything you believe about yourself. She holds up a turtleneck in a shade of beige so dull it could calm an angry bear. She holds up pleated pants that suggest you have already accepted a life of accounting. She holds up a sweater with a bold geometric pattern that makes you look like you're about to host a public access TV show about gardening. You try to protest gently, but the 1980s does not allow children to have opinions about their own appearance. You're told you need to look presentable. You're told you can't wear those same jeans forever. You're told this one sentence that destroys everything. You'll thank me when you're older. You know you won't. The fitting room becomes your prison. The curtain closes behind you, trapping you in a small space with mirrors on 3 sides. Every angle reveals a different version of you, each one more humiliating than the last. The fluorescent lighting is unforgiving. Your skin looks gray. Your hair looks like it's fighting for its life. You put on the outfit, step out, and your mother reacts with the enthusiasm of someone trying to convince herself she made a good choice. Oh, that looks nice. No, it doesn't. It looks like you've been hired to manage a yogurt shop. But then somehow the outfit ends up in the yes pile anyway because you are tired, because your mother is determined, because the longer you resist, the longer you stay trapped in the department store's emotional labyrinth. You finally escape, staggering back into the mall with a shopping bag full of regret. Your mother insists you stop it. The food court is a treat. The food court is crowded and loud, full of teenagers smoking cigarettes near a planter and parents holding trays with a hollow expression of defeated warriors. The lights flicker softly overhead as if the mall itself is also exhausted. You eat a soft pretzel, salty and warm, and for a brief moment, life feels okay. Then your mother hands you your new purchase, the neon windbreaker. It's bright, aggressively bright, a color that could be spotted from space. It makes a loud schnoise when you move, like you're constantly announcing your presence to the world. You put it on and immediately feel like a walking traffic cone. Your mother smiles proudly. Your father nods, pretending this is normal. You stare into the reflective glass of a store window and barely recognize yourself. Congratulations, you have survived them all. You've endured the fluorescent lighting, the fitting room mirrors, and the fashion choices of someone who thinks comfort is weakness. And now you return home with a neon windbreaker and a deep spiritual appreciation for the concept of never wearing clothes again. Your mother's idea of self-care is locking herself in the bathroom with a can of Tab and a well-worn copy of Cosmopolitan. She emerges an hour later, slightly less frazzled, but the existential dread remains. You notice it starts in the afternoon, usually right after something small goes wrong. Maybe the washing machine makes a new noise. Maybe the grocery store was out of the good cereal. Maybe your sibling spilled orange juice on the phone book again. The problems are never catastrophic, but they stack up like dishes in the sink, quietly, relentlessly, until your mother's face takes on that look. The look that says, "I've been running this household on fumes, caffeine, and pure willpower since the dawn of time." She doesn't announce her retreat, she just moves. 1 minute she's folding laundry with the speed of a factory worker. The next she's walking down the hallway with quiet determination. Tab in hand, magazine tucked under her arm like a life raft. The bathroom door clicks shut behind her with a finality that makes the entire house go still. It's the kind of silence that feels sacred. Even the dog pauses. Even your siblings lower their voices because everyone in the house knows what this means. Mom has entered her sanctuary. In the 1980s, self-care isn't candles or yoga or setting boundaries. It's disappearing into a small room with floral wallpaper and hoping nobody dares to knock. The bathroom is the only place she can claim as hers. Not the kitchen. Too many people need things. Not the living room. Dad's chair has more authority than the Constitution. Not her bedroom. Someone will inevitably wander in asking where socks are. So she retreats to the bathroom, the one place where she can sit down without being handed something sticky. Inside, you imagine the ritual begins. She sits on the closed toilet lid, the fuzzy one, of course, carefully places the magazine on her lap and cracks open the tab with a soft hiss that sounds almost like relief. Tab is not a drink. It's a statement. It's carbonated determination. It tastes like sweetened metal and quiet sacrifice, but it's hers and no one else touches it. She flips through Cosmopolitan, a magazine full of impossible hair, impossible bodies, and advice like how to keep your man interested, as if men are exotic houseplants that require daily misting. She reads articles about spicing up your marriage while the rest of the house slowly falls apart outside the door. She looks at perfume ads featuring women lounging on yachts, and for one brief moment, she remembers that somewhere out there life is supposed to feel glamorous. Then a child yells something from the living room, And Mom does not answer because this hour is her therapy, her escape, her only chance to hear her own thoughts, even if those thoughts are mostly about unpaid bills, whether the casserole was too salty, and how she's pretty sure nobody appreciates her. You walk past the bathroom door quietly, sensing the danger. Knocking is forbidden unless you're actively bleeding or the house is on fire, and even then, she will probably ask through the door, "Is it Siri?" "House," in a voice that makes you reconsider your definition of serious. Outside, the family adjusts. You and your siblings become temporarily self-sufficient, like stranded campers. You make your own snacks. You stop fighting. You avoid eye contact. Even Dad becomes quieter, turning the TV down slightly, as if he can sense that a woman in the bathroom is trying to experience peace. And in that quiet moment, you realize something. Your mother's self-care isn't indulgence, it's survival. She doesn't have time to recharge. She doesn't have time for long walks or spa days or even a nap. She has a can of Tab, a magazine, and a bathroom door that locks. An hour later, she emerges. Her expression is calmer, not happy, just calmer, like someone who managed to step out of a storm for a moment. She smooths her hair. She adjusts her shirt. She tosses the empty Tab can in the trash like she's throwing away evidence. She looks at all of you standing there awkwardly and says something like, "All right, let's get back to it." And she goes right back into the kitchen, back into the chores, back into the emotional labor of managing a family that runs entirely on her invisible effort. The existential dread is still there, of course, but now it's slightly quieter, and in the 1980s that counts as peace. Congratulations. You've witnessed the rarest phenomenon of suburban life. Mom taking a break. It didn't fix everything, but it kept her from screaming into the fridge, and honestly, that's a win. Bedtime comes with a chorus of good nights and the soft glow of a nightlight. You lie awake, listening to the muffled sound of your parents arguing about interest rates in the neighbor's new car. The R. Eel. Monsters are emotional repression and adjustable rate mortgages. The house settles into its nighttime form, a slightly quieter version of the same chaotic machine. The TV has been turned off, leaving behind that phantom hum and a faint warm smell from the screen. The living room is dim now, lit only by the orange blink of the VCR clock still, flashing 12, like a tiny electronic cry for help. Somewhere in the kitchen, dishes drip slowly in the sink, each drop sounding like a countdown. You shuffle toward your bedroom, wearing pajamas made of flannel or polyester. Either way, something that scratches slightly, no matter how many times it's washed. The hallway is darker at night, filled with shadows and the vague threat of stepping on something sharp. You pass the bathroom where the avocado green fixtures gleam faintly under the nightlight like they're alive. You pass your sibling's door, already closed, already hiding whatever secret war they're fighting with their own thoughts. Then you reach your room. It smells like childhood, which is to say, crayons, dust, and the faint plastic scent of old toys. The air is cool. The carpet is soft in places and worn flat in others. Your bed is covered in a quilt that your grandmother made, stitched with love, and the faint smell of laundry detergent that will never quite come out. You climb under the blankets, pulling them up like armor. You check the edges of your bed out of habit, because even though you're too old to truly believe in monsters, you're also old enough to know that fear doesn't care what you believe. You glance toward the closet door, half expecting it to creak open. The closet is stuffed with jackets and hangers and a box of random cords that no one knows the purpose of. And yet still you stare at it, as if something might crawl out. You switch on the nightlight. It casts a weak, comforting glow shaped like a teddy bear or a tiny lighthouse, depending on how deeply your parents committed to the theme. It doesn't light much, but it's enough to soften the shadows, enough to convince your brain that for now you are safe. Then you hear it. Not a monster, not footsteps, not a scratch at the window. Voices, your parents talking in low tones down the hall. At first it's just murmurs, the kind adults make when they think children are asleep. But even when you're half asleep, you can sense tension the way dogs can sense thunderstorms. Their voices rise slightly, not yelling, never yelling. 1980s. Parents don't yell when it's serious. They speak tightly, carefully. Like every word costs money. You catch fragments, interest rate. We can't keep doing this. The neighbor's new car. You never listen. It's always something adult, something you don't fully understand but still feel in your stomach. Money, mortgages, bills, responsibilities, the invisible monster that lives in the walls and drinks coffee at midnight. You don't know what an adjustable rate mortgage is, but you know it makes your parents' voices sound tired. You know it's the reason your mother sigh in the kitchen. You know it's the reason your father stares into space while holding his mug. You lie still staring up at the ceiling. You can hear the old house creak. You can hear the wind outside brushing against the windows like fingers. The radiator clicks and pops, always sounding like something is trying to communicate. Your stomach feels strange, not hungry, not sick, just unsettled. This is the part of childhood nobody warns you about. The part where you realize adults are afraid too. Not of monsters, but of the future, of debt, of losing control, of turning into the kind of family that whispers instead of laughs. And you lie there listening, feeling oddly guilty for existing, even though you haven't done anything wrong. That's the magic of emotional repression. It seeps through walls like smoke. You inhale it without meaning to. It becomes part of your bedtime routine. Eventually, the voices fade. A door closes softly. A faucet runs. The house returns to silence. But it's not the same silence as before. It's heavier, like the air has been pressed down. You turn over, pulling the blanket tighter. You focus on smaller, safer things. The sound of your own breathing, the gentle hum of the nightlight, the distant bark of a dog outside, and slowly you drift. Because in the 1980s, bedtime isn't just about sleep. It's about pretending everything is fine until morning. And if you can do that, congratulations, you've survived another night. Not with bravery, not with heroism, but with the quiet endurance of a child who learns early that the scariest things in life don't hide under the bed. They sit at the kitchen table whispering about car payments. The basement is both a playroom and a portal to another dimension. It smells like mold and lost ambitions. There's a box labeled tax returns 1978 that no one dares open. You stand at the top of the basement, staring down into a darkness that feels personal. The air drifting up from below is cooler, damp, and faintly haunted. Not by ghosts exactly, but by unfinished projects and unused exercise equipment. Somewhere down there, something hums. Could be the water heater, could be a creature. In the 1980s, those are basically the same thing. The stairs creak under your feet as you descend, each step groaning like it's trying to warn you. The handrail is sticky in that way old basements always are, like it's been coated in a thin film of mystery. You grip it anyway because if you fall down these stairs, you will not die peacefully. You will die loudly with your mother yelling, "I told you not to run." While you tumble into the underworld, at the bottom you flick on the light. It doesn't brighten so much as it reveals. The basement's overhead bulb flickers, casting a weak yellow glow across cement walls, exposed pipes, and a series of stains on the carpet that cannot be explained by natural science. The smell hits you fully now. Mildew, old laundry detergent, damp cardboard, and something vaguely metallic like pennies in sadness. The basement is where things go when your parents don't know what to do with them. Old furniture, broken lamps, sports trophies that nobody remembers earning. A treadmill that hasn't moved since the Carter administration. There's a couch down here, too. A faded brown sofa with a suspicious sag in the middle, like it has absorbed years of adult exhaustion. The fabric is rough, slightly itchy, and somehow always a little wet, even though nobody has spilled anything recently. If your home is a human body, the basement is the subconscious. Everything you don't talk about goes down here. You wander past the washing machine and dryer, both loud enough to be considered weapons. The dryer vents a warm gust of lint-scented air. The washing machine makes a sound like it's chewing rocks. Laundry baskets are stacked everywhere as if the basement itself is breeding socks. There's also the workbench, your dad's sacred zone. Tools hang neatly on the wall in theory, but in practice, everything is slightly out of place because every project has been abandoned halfway through. There's a half-built shelf. There's a can of paint labeled beige that has solidified into a fossil. There's a jar of screws that might contain the missing pieces to every broken object in the house, but no one will ever match them correctly. Then you see it, the box. It sits against the far wall, dusty and ominous, written on in black marker. Tax. Returns 1978. The question mark is what makes it terrifying. It suggests the tax returns are not finished. They're ongoing, endless, like a curse passed down through generations. You stare at it the way you'd stare at a locked door in a horror movie. You do not open it. You value your peace. You also value not learning things about adulthood that would ruin your ability to sleep. The basement, for all its dread, is also a playground. This is where you come when it's too hot outside or too cold, or when your parents want you out of the way. Your toys live down here in crates. Action figures with missing limbs, board games with no instructions, a plastic racetrack with half the pieces snapped. Somewhere in the corner is an old beanbag chair that's permanently flattened, shaped like a defeated pancake. You sit on the floor and play anyway because childhood is incredibly adaptable. You can make an entire universe out of 3 broken toys in a cardboard box. The basement becomes your fortress, your hideout, your secret world. As long as you ignore the dampness and the fact that the carpet smells like it once witnessed a flood, then comes the true basement horror, the stains. There's a dark patch near the couch that looks like someone spilled cola in 1982 and just accepted it as part of the landscape. There's a lighter ring-shaped stain that could be from a plant pot or maybe the ghost of a drink. There's a large area near the laundry machines that feels slightly crunchy underfoot, and you decide immediately not to investigate further. Basement logic is simple. If you don't understand it, you step around it. If you touch it, you become part of it. Somewhere above you, footsteps cross the kitchen floor. The house cacks. The muffled sound of the TV drifts down. You feel oddly calm down here in the underworld of suburban life. The basement might smell like mold and lost ambitions, but it's quiet. It's private. It's a place where nobody asks you about homework or chores. And in that way, it becomes a strange kind of comfort. This dim, dusty space filled with forgotten things until the light flickers again. And you suddenly remember why nobody stays down here too long. Because the basement doesn't just hold storage, it holds secrets. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear the tax returns breathing. Sundays are for family drives to nowhere in particular. You sit quietly in the back, counting cows and waiting for the argument about directions to begin. Every trip ends at a gas station bathroom that smells like despair. It starts after lunch when the house becomes too quiet and your parents decide they need to get out for a bit. You don't know what that means exactly. You just know it involves putting on shoes, sitting in the car for an hour, and pretending that staring at trees is a wholesome family activity. Your father announces it like a command. "All right," he says, clapping his hands once. "Let's go for a drive." No one cheers. No one celebrates. You and your siblings move like prisoners being transported, shuffling toward the station wagon with a slow resignation of people who have learned that resistance only makes things worse. The car smells the same as always, vinyl seats warmed by the sun, old French, fries, and that faint lingering aroma of cigarette smoke that clings to everything in the 1980s like a family curse. You slide into the back seat where the seatbelt is buried so deep in the upholstery it might as well be a myth. Your sibling calls shotgun, your mother sigh, and your father immediately turns the radio to the local station playing soft rock as if to prove this is supposed to be pleasant. It's not. The drive begins with optimism, or at least the appearance of it. Your father grips the steering wheel with both hands like he's piloting a ship through hostile waters. Your mother sits beside him with the road atlas on her lap, a thick paper, book full of folded chaos. She doesn't look at it yet. That comes later. First, she stares out the window silently, already preparing for the moment your father misses the turn she suggested. You stare out the back window, watching neighborhoods blur into long stretches of road. Suburbia fades into outskirts. Outskirts fade into open land. You start counting cows because there is literally nothing else to do. Cows are your entertainment. Cows are your purple. Ser. Each cow you spot is a small victory in the war against boredom. Your siblings entertain themselves by poking each other, fighting over who gets the better window view and asking questions they already know will irritate your father. Where are we going? Your father answers in the tone of a man who doesn't want to admit he doesn't know. Just driving. Why? Because this is how adults justify things in the 1980s. They don't need reasons. They simply create activities out of thin air and expect everyone to act grateful. After about 15 minutes, the tension begins to rise. Your mother glances down at the atlas, the pages fluttering ominously. Your father takes an exit without warning. Your mother clears her throat. This is the first sign of disaster. I thought we were going the other way, she says gently at first. We are, your father replies, immediately defensive. That's not the way to the lake. We're not going to the lake. Oh, your mother says. Then where are we going? Your father pauses, his jaw tightening. He does not answer. His silence fills the car like smoke. Your mother flips the atlas open anyway, as if she's about to solve a mystery. She traces routes with her finger, muttering. Your father drives faster. Your siblings sense the coming argument and go quiet like animals before a storm. Then the directions argument begins. Right on schedule. Your mother offers a suggestion. Your father rejects it. Your mother insists she's right. Your father insists he knows where he's going. You sink lower into the seat, wishing you could dissolve into the vinyl upholstery and become one with the crumbs. You stare out the window harder. Now you're counting trees. Now you're counting telephone poles. Now you're counting the minutes until you can escape. Eventually the drive reaches its climax. The gas stations stop. Every Sunday drive ends the same way. It's like a law of nature. Your father pulls into a gas station not because the car needs fuel, but because he needs a reason to stop the drive without admitting it was pointless. The station is always slightly grimy. The fluorescent lights buzz. The air smells like gasoline and hot pavement. You stumble out of the car, stretching your legs like you've been on a cross-country expedition. Your father pays at the pump. Your mother heads toward the bathroom, and you follow because now you have to. The gas station bathroom is its own nightmare realm. The door sticks. The floor is damp. The smell hits you like a punch. Stale urine, industrial cleaner, and something that might have once been soap, but now feels like a threat. The mirror is cloudy. The hand dryer wheezes weakly. There is no paper towel. There is always something sticky, and you never know what it is. You wash your hands anyway because you're trying to be civilized. Then you return to the car. The drive continues a little longer, quieter now. Everyone exhausted from the emotional workout of arguing about directions in front of children who will someday need therapy. Eventually you pull back into the driveway and your father says something like, "See, that was nice." And you nod because in the 1980s you don't argue with the person holding the car keys. Congratulations, you've survived the Sunday drive, the longest hour of your life, the most pointless family tradition ever invented, and the only way your parents know how to spend time together. Without talking about their feelings. And the cows, they were the best part. Once a year, everyone is forced into matching sweaters for the family photo. No one smiles naturally. The final result is a time capsule of awkwardness, a testament to the fact that you all survived another year together, barely. It begins with your mother announcing it days in advance, like she's preparing you for a medical procedure. "We're taking the family picture this weekend," she says in a tone that suggests this is not a suggestion but an inevitability. Your father reacts with a slow blink and a sigh. Your siblings immediately begin bargaining, promising chores, offering bribes, even suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the family does not need photographic evidence of itself this year. Your mother does not negotiate. She's already chosen the outfits. The matching sweaters appear the night before, folded neatly on the couch like uniforms. They're usually some shade of red, green, or beige, holiday appropriate but emotionally draining. The fabric is itchy, the neckline is tight, the pattern is aggressively festive, featuring reindeer, snowflakes, or geometric shapes that look like the inside of a cereal box. You put it on and instantly feel like you've been transformed into a human decoration. Your hair is another battle. Your mother combs it with a force that suggests she's trying to remove every bad decision you've ever made. She sprays it into place with hairspray so strong you could survive a hurricane. Your father, meanwhile, is told to just look presentable, which means he spends 10 minutes shaving in silence and emerges, looking vaguely irritated like a man who's been asked to perform. Emotional labor. The family loads into the car with the energy of people heading to court. Someone complains that the sweater is too hot. Someone complains that the sweater is too itchy. Your mother reminds everyone to stop complaining. Your father grumbles something about how this is a waste of time, which only fuels your mother's determination. The photo studio is usually in a mall. Of course it is. You enter through the bright fluorescent lights and smell the same mall mixture of popcorn, perfume, and soft pretzel breath. The photography. Place is tucked between a shoe store and a kiosk selling novelty mugs. A giant sample photo of another family smiles at you from the wall. A suspiciously perfect family with hair that doesn't look electrified and sweaters that don't look like punishment. The photographer greets you with enthusiasm that feels unnatural. They have a headset. They have a clipboard. They call you guys and tell you to have fun, which is like telling someone to enjoy dental surgery. Then you're ushered into the studio. The backdrop is always something neutral, blue, gray, or fake wood paneling. A stool sits in the center like an object meant to humiliate someone. Your father is placed on it first. He sits stiffly, hands on knees like he's waiting for a job interview. Your mother is positioned next, slightly angled, told to lean in. And she does, smiling with a forced intensity of a woman who will not allow her family to look dysfunctional on film. Then come the children. You're arranged like furniture. Someone is placanding. Someone is place-sitting. Someone is forced to rest a hand on someone else's shoulder in a way that feels deeply unnatural. Your little sib. Ling tries to make a weird face and is immediately told, "Stop it. Be normal." You attempt to smile, but it's hard, because smiling for a family photo is not smiling. It's holding your face in a specific position while your mother says through clenched teeth, "If you ruin this picture, I will remember forever." The photographer tries jokes. "Say cheese," they shout. You say cheese, but your smile looks haunted. They try a different one. "Say spaghetti." You say spaghetti. Now your father looks like he's about to cry. Someone blinks at the wrong time. Someone's hair falls out of place. Someone's sweater rides up, revealing a belt buckle or waistband, or the general sense that none of this fits properly. Your mother adjusts, everyone like a director fixing an uncooperative cast. Your father's smile becomes thinner with every flash. Finally, the photographer says, "Okay, I think we got it." The relief is immediate. Everyone exhales at once. Your siblings begin moving again. Your father stands up like he's been released from prison. Your mother smooths her sweater and asks to see the proofs. The proofs are devastating. Everyone looks slightly uncomfortable. Someone's smile is forced. Someone's eyes are halfway closed. Your father looks like he's thinking about the lawn. Your mother looks like she's holding the family together using her teeth. The sweaters, which seemed festive at home, now look like a coordinated cry for help. But your mother chooses one because she always chooses one. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to exist. A record, a proof, a snapshot, a way to say, "We were here, we made it, we survived." Later, the framed photo will sit on a shelf in your living room. Visitors will glance at it and say, "Oh, cute." And your mother will smile proudly. But you will look at it and remember the truth, that the family photo isn't about happiness. It's about endurance. It's about a group of people trying their best in itchy sweaters under fluorescent lights, holding together long enough for the camera to click. And honestly, that might be the most accurate family portrait possible. So, here we are at the end of another long, absurd day inside the 1980s American family, still standing, a little static, clingy, and probably humming the theme song to Cheers without knowing why. You've survived polyester pajamas, microwaved mystery meat, and more emotional bottling than a corporate seminar. Somehow you've made it through the jungle of Tupperware, the landmines of sibling rivalries, and the existential dread that lurks in every wood-paneled basement. Maybe your family wasn't exactly the picture-perfect sitcom. Most weren't. Maybe your dad's greatest act of affection was letting you use the good remote, and your mom's version of self-care was 5 minutes alone with a can of Tab in a magazine from 1979. But if nothing else, the 1980s taught us how to laugh in the face of neon anxiety, how to find comfort in the static of the TV, and how to cherish those weird little rituals that somehow got us through. So tonight, as you settle under your blanket, hopefully not crocheted from the same stuff as those living room drapes, take a moment to appreciate the small comforts. Hot water, therapy apps, smoke-free back seats, and maybe a little more emotional vocabulary than your parents ever had. Whisper a quiet thank you to every survivor of the casserole era who paved the way for softer towels, less dangerous lawn darts, and families that, if nothing else, learned to hug with both arms and not just a nod from across the room. Because history isn't just struggle and suffering, it's proof that people can be ridiculous, resourceful, and resilient all at once. And no matter how weird your family might have been, they gave you stories, strange recipes, and maybe even a reason to laugh yourself gently to sleep. Rest easy, knowing that you made it. Tomorrow, the only thing you have to survive is the group text from your siblings, and if you're lucky, a breakfast that doesn't come out of a box labeled surprise. Good night and sleep well. Sleep